Hello, welcome. You may be familiar with Factorio or Wave Defense or speedrunning, but quite possibly not the combination of the three. I'm not really sure that Factorio Wave Defense speedrunning is a thing yet, but I'm working on it. I'm going to attempt to explain at least one of these three as we get through this. So Factorio is a 2D tile-based industry automation kind of wave defense game. Like all good industrial games, we need to first do a lot of mining and get the resources out of the ground that will be the foundation of our industry, which is why I'm bringing this water pipe across the map. Don't worry about that yet. This resource is coal. There are two kinds of miners in Factorio. The kind that I'm currently doing a bit of a messy job of putting down are the burner miners that can be powered by any fuel source, burnable fuel source such as wood, and they're in a loop, and they'll just like inject the coal they mine into the next burner miner, which will then use it as fuel, and they will just go around and around, and we'll get a lot of coal for it. It'll be fine. The other kind of mining is electrically powered, which is what I'm putting on this other resource, which is rock or stone, or I never really pay attention to exactly what, but like the stony thing. And they're complaining because they don't have electricity, because I haven't addressed that for them yet. Like, I don't have a power grid. And instead of doing that, I'm going to go and put some more electric miners that are also complaining on this iron patch. Iron is extremely important, especially in the early game. A lot of the early infrastructure that powers our base and is our base uses a lot of iron, so I'm going to need a lot of that. Usually in Factorio, there's this sort of a manual tree punching phase, which we just skip in Wave Defense, because Wave Defense gives us these personal robots, which will just go out and doing our bidding for us. We can use them to chop trees, we can use them to put belts and miners down. But yeah, now I'm going to work on the power grid a bit. The little blue square around the power poles indicates the areas in which each power pole will provide power to whatever machines or implements I put there. So yeah, our base will be steam powered. We've got the water from the lake and the coal that I just got from the burner miners, and yeah, this is a good example of me copy pasting a thing and the little robots filling out all the gaps. It's a whole lot easier than putting down every individual thing by yourself, especially when there are repeated patterns. But it's also not a thing that you usually do in Factorio this early in the game. It's a very wave defense thing. Like, normally you would have to punch all of those trees yourself and whatever. So the next step is to build a kind of smelting lane, and Wave Defense also makes this kind of weird by giving us a bunch of quite good free stuff that we otherwise wouldn't have at the beginning of the game. So these are steel furnaces, which are not the basic furnaces of the game. The basic furnaces are stone furnaces, but Wave Defense gave us these ones, so we're going to use them. Yeah, connecting up the power grid, you can see the areas that are powered, and the substation, if we see that again, has a much larger area that it powers, and I put those in the wrong place, but that's easy to fix with the robots. That would be a real pain if I didn't have the robots. These things are inserters, which will take whatever's on a belt and put it into anything that needs it. In this case, because these are furnaces and they want the ore and they want a fuel source, and I've just given them manually a fuel source there so they can start to do their thing. And the inserters will put more ore in the furnace when the furnace needs more to do some smelting stuff. So that needs to be lined up fairly carefully. So yeah, Factorio is a game about launching a rocket in the same way as Counter-Strike is a game about defusing a bomb. You're going to get there, but there's a bunch of other stuff you have to do first. And in the same way, Counter-Strike is really a game about lining your crosshairs up with things, Factorio is really a game about putting things on belts. And so we're kind of setting that up at the moment now. We're going to design a little front of this thing so we know exactly where our belts of stuff are going to arrive to go into the smelter columns that we're now defining, and we're going to stretch this out a bit. And you can see the belts have two sides, and these sides kind of don't interact. We're putting all the ore on the inside, of that iron smelting lane, and then on the other lane we're going to have the fuel sources that the smelters will use. Yeah, and we're also going to make some other intermediate things because these are useful. This is pretty normal for Factorio, although it's not normal to be using tier 2 assemblers to craft engines at this point in the game. Like these are not things you usually have, and like certainly not powering it with a substation. This is all strange wave defense stuff. But we want more iron smelting, so now we're going to do, again, another kind of unusual thing. Like stone furnace smelting lines are pretty standard in Factorio, not all that common to do a mixed stone steel furnace thing. Like by the time you can make steel furnaces, which by the way we can't yet, you don't really need, like you can commit to one of those or the other, and by the time you can make the other, you don't necessarily mix the two in the same place, but we are, because wave defense. Yeah, there's probably quite a lot we can say about belts. They have 2 lanes, there's a couple of different grades. We're probably not going to get to see the other grades in this run. They've got the 2 sides, and they've also got like a fixed capacity and throughput and volume. And because the belts have a particular throughput and the furnaces have a rate at which they work, there's kind of like a well-established number of furnaces per lane of belt to, you know, efficiently craft the whole, efficiently smelt the whole thing, and not be too wasteful and not have too many machines left over doing nothing. And that's not the number of furnaces we have, because some of them are steel and some of them are stone, and they all, like, that ends up being a full belt, but not in a normal way. Having a car here is not a normal thing. All your furnaces complaining about not having fuel is a pretty normal thing, to be honest. But yeah, we're now going to get all of the coal out of these burner miners, and we're going to replace them with some electric miners. So the copying and pasting is also a cool thing that you can do once you have robots. Most of the time you have to manufacture the robots yourself, which can take quite a bit of effort. The wave defense thing of just giving me robots for free when I started is making a bunch of things a lot easier. And yeah, wave defense Factorio is primarily a game about belts, and this is me trying to figure out how to put the belt in around where the rest of my power grid will eventually be. But now I'm mining some coal with electric miners, and the coal that I'm mining with those electric miners is feeding the boilers and steam engines that are giving me the power. So as long as nothing dies, that should be self-sustaining and fine. Having that die is also very normal in Factorio. So yeah, these semi-translucent belts are... the splitter is pretty important, and we'll talk about this later. These semi-translucent belts aren't real belts, but they're places you would like a belt to be. So a bot might go out and build that for you if a bot has access to the stuff that needs to be put there. And because these bots are on my person and I had the belt, we saw a bunch of them trying to do that before I did it for them. But yeah, bots are great for putting down things in weird patterns. They still have to do round trips with all of this stuff, so sometimes I'll still be putting down things in straight lines that you can drag, like belts, or sometimes miners. I don't necessarily want to spend the bot energy on having them put out fairly easy constructions. I have a limited amount of bot energy. This suit is solar powered, which is, the little green bar on the bottom left next to kind of the suit of armor thing below the person. The suit of armor is the kind of armor I'm wearing, which was given to me by the scenario. The green bar that's currently full is the bot energy, and they're currently happy. They might not be soon, depending on how much stuff we have to give them. But we're now doing, like, that's a real piece of automation. We're mining some we're mining some iron out in the fields. It's getting smelted. The belts are magical. Don't ask about the belts. we're powering all the inserters with substations, which is very Wave Defense. It's not like you don't get those for ages normally, but we're given them, so we're going to use them. And then yeah, the assemblers, again, a tier of assembler that we don't usually have at this point in the game, is manufacturing some things for us. So yeah, we've now got kind of 2 belts of iron going, which is good. We're going to make some more stone furnaces with the things that the miners were putting in boxes. The miners will just mine whatever they're on and push whatever they mine into whatever's in front of them. It might be a belt, it might be an assembler, it might be a box, it might be a furnace. So yeah, we're now for the first time setting up some copper smelting, and that's all we need for now. We don't need as much copper. We need a bit, but we mostly need iron. Belts are made of iron, assemblers are made of iron, inserters and mining drills are all made of iron. The copper will end up very important later. And yeah, these splitters will help distribute whatever's on a belt across multiple belts, and they'll just basically spread it out. You can also set them to filter and prioritize and stuff like that. We'll see that in a bit. Cars are great. Flying around in cars is very good for going fast, but also not normal for this point in Factorio. You have to do some research. You have to unlock those. We don't have to do any of that, so we've just got a car so we can go fast. Yeah, we wanted to get the rest of that belt so we can finish off building this thing. And yeah, the bots will help where they can. This is setting up lanes of ore and smelting on plates is quite normal Factorio. Yeah. So as well as actual things that we put in the world, like the furnaces and the belts, there are a bunch of intermediate things that we have to kind of craft on the way to these items. That includes the cogs that we can see there that are being used to make the belts. It also includes the coils, which we saw earlier, which we'll see again, but at the moment it's time to build some steel. Steel is extremely important. Lots of things need steel. That's my steel build, it's done. Do you like my steel build? This is very Wave Defense. We don't need a lot of steel just because it's Wave Defense. We start with a silo, which we kind of saw at the beginning, and then I walked away from it. And normally we have to build that, and that takes steel. Normally there's a lot of research to do to unlock the things that we're already using, and they take steel. The substations that we already used, and in fact these furnaces themselves, all take steel to build. So this is not a thing you can normally do at all. And yeah, this is just like, this is the least we have to do for Wave Defense, and we're going to go fast. So that's everything we needed to do. What is pretty normal is having a place that will build not just like little belts and, you know, a bit of belt, a bit of intermediates, a bit of pipe for us, but to build like finished products that will make it easier for us to just come back, pick up the things we need, go and build another part of the factory. It's not normal to power your first mall with a substation. That's just weird. The red inserters will always take things from whatever's a square away, and this could be a belt, it could be a chest, it could be a furnace. The inserters will always try to take things from whichever side of the belt is closest to them, but they'll take from either side if they have to. You can see it with the cogs at the moment. All inserters will always put things on the far side of whatever belt they're putting things into. That doesn't really matter if you're putting things in boxes or assemblers or whatever. It's only belts that have sides. So yeah, so we're setting up a little mall that has a belt of iron, a belt of green chips, which are the basic semiconductor, and a belt of cogs, and that's pretty normal. There are a lot of things that are built, a lot of infrastructure that is built from that combination of ingredients, and we're going to use this little setup here to manufacture the rest of the things we need for our base. It's not entirely normal to be having, like, to have these assemblers attempt to swap things between each other like that. That's a very Wave Defense thing. We'll talk about that in a bit as well. But the inserters also won't do anything if the assembler they're trying to put things into doesn't need it. So they'll only like pick things up and move them between if one of them happens to be assembling something that the other needs as an ingredient, which will be relevant later. But it's called Wave Defense. We should probably do something about actually defending. It's day 3. We've had 2 waves of attacks already, and so far our current military commitment is we've started manufacturing ammunition. So we're going to need to do something about that kind of soon. Yeah, this is complaining about the amount of iron ore you have. It's also very Factorio. Those, like, I'd be happier if more of those furnaces were active, because that would mean we had more going through the factory, and you could see me there checking how many of those I had. When you drag over like that, it tells you how many objects of each type are in a thing. But yeah, the next part of military development is making a lot of grenades. So this is an example where the electric miners are complaining about not having power, but that's fine. We'll just give them power now, and you can see the little blue squares overlapping with them. That's fine. The miners are pushing their coal directly into the assembler, which has a recipe that requires coal to be made. That little flashing red thing at the bottom with 12 and now 15 and now 10, those are things we have that are taking damage, and it's actually pretty normal Factorio to be ignoring that. Probably we should be concerned. We're going to do something about that in a bit, but not yet. So the other electric furnaces we have, the things in the big columns all needed a fuel source. These electric furnaces are the 3rd tier of smelting, which, again, very Wave Defense. We don't usually have these for quite a while yet, but we're going to use these over here because then we don't have to organize getting fuel to them, and they're going to smelt some of the rocks that are being mined from this rock patch into stone bricks, which are then going to get passed by the little yellow inserters into the assembler that's making wall. And wall is, you know, that's a useful defensive thing to have. We might come back to that later when there's some of it to work with. So yeah, we're now going to work on getting more iron in, and that trick with the splitter will mean that everything will end up on the top belt if it can, and anything that's left on the bottom belt and can still go out that way, and then that little 3rd top-up belt between the inserters, and the inserters will put ore on the far side of that belt. I think we get to see it again in a bit, and then running the belt directly into the side will put more ore on the near side of the belt. I wonder if we get to see that. Kind of only just, but I'm now getting like closer to 2 full belts of ore, which is cool. Day 4, no real combat stuff done yet. It's Wave Defense. Haven't even got myself a decent gun yet. But yeah, the car is extremely helpful. The car doesn't usually turn up till later. Now we're getting a decent gun. Let's get rid of these guns because they're kind of terrible. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff about how the upgrades work and which upgrades apply to which things, and the turrets and things like that. We are going to build a couple of little combat robotics, which are like fighting versions of the construction things that just put the miners down for me. Yeah, because I didn't have the miners when I tried to build them before, so you know, just remembered, and I needed to save some of that stone for another thing, which I just handcrafted as well. Yeah, the way the combat upgrades work in Wave Defense is, like, you start with all of the technologies unlocked, but you don't start with any of the combat upgrades. You start with some of the non-combat upgrades, but not all of them. And you get upgrade points in Wave Defense by killing nests and worms. And I reckon that ends up easier than having to do the research for them. Like, there's no research in this mode at all, but it does mean that the first bit of combat you have to do where you attack a nest for the first time is isn't kind of necessarily without upgrades because you haven't done any of the upgrade work. So yeah, those combat robotics, we'll see them again in a bit. Help us get through the first little base like kind of reliably and easily. So we're now working on getting our copper smelting online. We didn't need that much before. The base infrastructure doesn't need a whole lot of copper, but the rocket needs a lot of copper. The copper is like more heavily used in the semiconductor bit of industry than iron is, so we need to get a lot of copper. There are various hotkeys and things like that for flipping and arranging things you're copying and pasting. This is, again, not really a thing you need to worry about normally in this stage of Factorio because you don't have all the robots to do things for you. And you can try and help and mess it up like that. I mean, putting things in straight lines should be a thing I can manage except for there. But the bots can deal with all of the fiddly things like inserters that have to go in exactly the right place, facing the right direction, stuff like that. I'm just going to copy paste those around. And there's a nice thing where if you drag belts, it will put undergrounds in the places they should be. So we've just expanded our copper smelting a bit. They're still a little bit complaining because they're not getting fuel. And yeah, now crafting some more undergrounds because we need some more underground belts because we've also got to go under the substations at the end of that output column as well. Free up some inventory space because that's actually an extremely normal Factorio thing, is running out of space. And now we're collecting all this copper, we should probably do something with it. And what we're going to do with it is make a lot of green circuits. So yeah, green circuits are the entry-level semiconductor intermediate thing in Factorio. There are a couple of other levels of circuits. All of them need green circuits, and lots of other things need green circuits. You saw we put green circuits in them all, and we're going to need a lot of green circuits for basically the guidance systems of our rocket. And that particular pattern with the 3 assemblers making coils and 2 assemblers making green circuits is a pretty common pattern and comes from the ratio of rates at which these various machines do their work. Like that balances out nicely. So you can see the red long-handed inserters are taking iron from a belt that's further away from the assemblers, and the blue inserters are putting all the green chips on the far side of the closer belt because, you know, inserter things. So we're now making a lot more green chips than our little mall needs, especially as I'm now pivoting away from all of that into some fluid mechanics stuff that doesn't use any green chips at all, but does show us why we have all the inserters that will swap things between machines. So the assembler making pipes in the middle that is now out of screen, those are an ingredient to the recipes on the left and right, and so we'll just make a bunch of stuff, pass it left, pass it right. That thing there is a hilarious thing that's also very Wave Defense that I might talk about in a later video. So what are we going to do with all of these green chips? We're going to put them in a box. We're going to put them in many boxes. We're going to make a lot of green chips. We've got some other stuff to do in the meantime, but we're going to need them later. We're going to need a lot of green chips later. And so we're going to put these chests down, we're going to power the inserters, and the inserters will just put the green chips in the chest until the chests are full. And yeah, that will cache quite a lot of green chips for us. And then we're going to do the same thing with copper. In previous runs, which you may or may not have seen, I did a copper cache and an iron cache, and that's a very normal Factorio speedrun thing to do. It's a very standard way of putting together a mixed build. This is not, like, there aren't that many cases in regular Factorio speedrunning where you have the iron and the copper but need to do something else. Like, we're doing this because we've got the iron and we've got the copper and we need them as green chips later, and the only thing we needed is green chips later, and we've got something else to do in the meantime. We've got to actually do some, wave defense. It's called Wave Defense. It's day 5. I'm fixing broken smelter lines that I didn't put together right the first time, getting like the other underground belt that I needed because I didn't have the underground belt there either. So yeah, get the ammo, I'll need that soon. Go underneath the substation. Yeah, so normally all the little wooden power poles get interlaced all the way between the smelting rows because you've got to power all of the inserters, and the little wooden power poles don't cover much area, but are also all you have to work with. So doing it with substations, yeah, weird, not normal. Maybe it's faster, maybe it's not, who knows. So I'm now extending my power grid, not because I need to, but because I'm here. I also want all the grenades, that's the main reason why I'm here. Take all of the grenades, take the mining drills because I don't actually need that much coal. What I do need is copper because those belts are not full, but I would like them to be full. That belt missing was a good reason why they weren't full. But we'll put a lot more copper into our machine. Cars on the belt. Do I care about the car on the belt? Probably not. Maybe a little. So we're going to do the same trick where we're going to have the splitter prioritize, put everything on the left belt if it can, and then a couple of inserters will move anything on the top up belt to the far side, and then everything else on the top up belt will just arrive on the other side of the belt. And hopefully, how many is that? Yeah, hopefully that's enough copper miners, and that should give us a decent amount of copper. We're again doing the trick of selecting a bunch of things in the copy paste to just count how many objects there are. And yeah, so we've got some walls. Walls will be useful for stuff. So we weren't smelting entire lanes of copper because we didn't have enough furnaces, and we had this weird mix of different types of furnaces. And we're now going to do a weird thing where, yeah, we're swapping all those furnaces over, and now we have less than 2 full belts of iron smelting, but we've now got 2 full belts of copper smelting. And that is, like, in terms of weird Factorio things, that is very Wave Defense. Like, I don't think I've seen any other situation where a Factorio player says, like, you know what the solution is here? The thing I need to do most is permanently decrease my iron throughput. Like, that's not a thing. But it's a thing here. That's the thing we're doing for Wave Defense. Because we've built the majority of our base now. It's now more important that we get as much copper through as possible to pile up that little semiconductor hoard that we're now driving past to build the rocket later, than it is that we have iron to increase the size of the thing. And this is just me checking on how my smelters are going, and they're not great yet. Could do better. But we'll work on that. So there's some ways of working on that. So it's day 5, and it's called Wave Defense, and we're still actually not going to defend against waves. We're just going to go and attack bases. The robots will automatically repair things. That makes a bunch of stuff easier. We've got the flying combat robots that are going to shoot stuff, and we've got some grenades, and we've got some turrets, and we can put some bullets in the turrets, and we've also got our shotgun, which is actually fantastic, and the fish work kind of like medikits in Factorio, which is also kind of strange. This is probably a larger base than people will consider taking on as their first base in normal Factorio. But, you know, it's fine. I've done this before, especially as we don't have any upgrades. Now we have a couple of upgrades. But yeah, we've still got a variety of tools that you don't usually have at this point in Factorio. Shotgun's good. The combat shotgun as a weapon is, I think, the latest weapon you unlock in the game, but it's also one that uses ammunition that happens really early, so it's reasonably easy to build. The main cost is the research. We didn't have to do the research, so we'll have a combat shotgun. It's fantastic. Look, it does things we need. There are a variety of concerns about base damage and armor and stuff like that that make the submachine gun terrible without upgrades and terrible with upgrades, and the gun turrets kinda terrible without upgrades but quite good with upgrades, and the combat shotgun really quite good at pushing through nests fairly early. So yeah, there's a quirk about the upgrade system that the gun turrets benefit from the damage upgrades more than they benefit from the firing speed upgrades. So I'm prioritizing the damage upgrades. the upgrade ranks also, yeah, get more fish impacts are good. The damage upgrade ranks also differ from base Factorio. I think ranks 1 and 2 are the same, they're 10% increments each. Then in Wave Defense, each subsequent rank still just gives you 10%, whereas the research technologies in Factorio give you incrementally more. But yeah, at this point we're taking a detour from fighting things to set up some oil, which is the other major category of resources in Factorio that aren't mined. They're pumped from oil patches in the ground. And the reason we're doing this now in this run is this map didn't look like it would have enough oil. So I just want to start extracting that and not doing anything with it yet, but I'm concerned I'm going to run out. And yeah, oil is the place. Oil is another learning curve in Factorio because you have to deal with managing fluids for the first time. But we'll talk about that in a bit. Yeah, most like Wave Defense things attack at night and in the daytime can be like surprisingly passive. But you know, get some more upgrades, throw some grenades, put down some turrets. This generally works. Like the damage upgrades for research in base Factorio get more difficult, not just because they cost more in terms of the amount of research you have to do, but also the kind of research you have to do gets increasingly more expensive. Whereas I would be tempted to say in Wave Defense it gets easier, because even though you need more points, like the most difficult to kill nest is the first one, and after that it gets easier because you have all the upgrades, but you can still die. This is pretty normal. Do my turrets live? My turrets live. So yeah, that's also extremely normal. You respawn, you try again. It's a bit of a shame. What's also extremely common is for your turrets to not be able to handle the fight that you started and for them to get destroyed. And so you can lose quite a lot of stuff by picking a fight you weren't ready for, or just being complacent or negligent about the fights you get into. And then your turret is destroyed, and depending on which stage of the game and how much picking all the stuff off of your corpse. So I didn't actually lose anything there other than a bit of time and a bit of pride, a bit of a shame, and yeah, having the right weapon select and all that kind of stuff. But we'll probably get through this fine. We've still got turrets. Turrets are great. Yeah, so turrets will complain when they're out of ammo. There's also a trick we're doing that I'll probably talk about at some other point, about using the construction robots to pick up the turrets quickly, which is not normally a way things... combat doesn't look like this half an hour into a normal Factorio game. So we're going to call it there because we've actually only got 5... Oh no, wait, we have 205 bullets left. That's the other reason why I don't use the submachine gun. If you have a submachine gun, then when you pick ammo up, it will disappear out of places that your hotbar will reach, and it will go into the gun on your tool belt, which is terrible because I'm never going to use it because they're not as good as gun turrets. And yeah, this is the point where I realised that I have ammunition that I didn't realise I did, and the combat shotgun is in the wrong place, and you know, I may as well get rid of these two terrible guns. Other things we don't particularly need. Yeah, more combat shells, more shotgun shells, more grenades. So yeah, at this point, I think I'm pretty happy that the upgrades I've got for all the guns around my perimeter will get me through a couple more nights, and it's time to build some oil processing. Yeah, so this is the other reason why the upgrades I think are a good strategy on Wave Defense, because all of the defenses you've already been given all benefit from the upgrades. If your defensive plan is upgrade all the gun turrets, the only way you can do that is killing things though. So yeah, so we've got a new kind of building that takes fluid inputs. We've got this chemical plant, which is basically the assembler of fluids. You can also put solid objects into them and get solid objects out of them, and essentially this is a big petrochemicals build because we need plastics to get from oil. Is that in the right place? I'm not sure it's in the right place. It's not in the right place. I wanted it there. Yeah, this is the advanced form. This is advanced oil processing. Normal Factorio games start with basic oil processing first, which has only one input and only one output, and that one's in the wrong place, but I won't notice that till later, which is a bit of a shame. But yeah, we have everything unlocked, so we're immediately going to the most efficient, most effective recipes of things. And yeah, in normal Factorio, all of these pipes have completely different mechanics to belts, and it's kind of the first time you see fluid mechanics and the various complicated, annoying things fluids do differently. And there can be a bit of a learning curve in that. Yeah, do I realize yet? Not yet. But yeah, so that's where I'm eventually going to connect the oil to. The recipe, the oil refineries, which are the larger buildings with the multiple inputs and outputs, they also need water. So I need to pump that over from the lake, and to do that I need the underground belts, or the underground pipes, which I forgot about. So these have made as many of these steam engines as I want, and so I'm going to set these to some useful recipes. And again, this is the benefit of having these lanes of cogs and chips and iron and all these normal things that normal parts of a base are built out of, because I can just change to whatever I need. That's still not very normal Factorio. It's more normal in Factorio to just... It's because the base we build here, because it doesn't need research, doesn't need to be nearly as big. We don't have as much to do. We don't need to scale as hard, so we can get by with manufacturing all the belt we'll need in 20 minutes without having fights. So we've connected up some of those things, and so we're building the rest of the stuff, and I think this is the point where I've realized I've messed this build up. Yeah, all those got to be in a different place, which is a shame. This is... I guess this kind of demonstrates the complications of fluids in Factorio, though if you plug a belt you don't want to into another belt, you're still chasing down annoying things that are in different in different builds, in different parts of the base for ages anyway. So this is the fluid version of trying to figure out why a thing is on the wrong belt. Yeah, fluids, it's fine. So that's where the oil input belt goes, and then we need to connect this to the tanks we set up on the other side of the map, which I still don't think are going to be enough, but hopefully the stuff we've put in the tank will sort of give us a decent lead, and we'll get, decently far through and do okay. How are we doing? A bit. So yeah, we've got a bit. I mean, this map was also somewhat helpful in that we chose a map that the oil was at least inside the walls. A lot of them aren't, and the maps with the oil outside give better rates of oil, but then you've got to do a bit more to defend them. So the resource patches in Factorio are generally finite. Some of the miners ran out, so I moved them, and now they're mining again, and yeah, that's pretty happy. We've got to connect the rest of the oil. Getting distracted is very Factorio. Using the bots and the ghosts. So now all of the copper is mining. That coal belt is looking pretty healthy. All of the refineries on the left have got their flare stack indicating their processing. We get 3 fluid outputs from the advanced recipe, and I actually only need 2 of them. Almost all the time you need 3. You need all 3. There are things you want to do with all 3. But Wave Defense being Wave Defense, I don't think I need the things you get from heavy oil, so I'm just not going to bother with it. You can convert the heavy oil to more light oil, which is what these machines are doing. and then the ones in front of them are converting the light oil to petroleum gas, which is what I need for plastic, and I need a lot of plastic. And yeah, if I was building my own bots, the construction bots, they require the heavy oil. Yeah, the building a silo also indirectly requires heavy oil, but I don't have to do either of those things. Maybe the that actually I shouldn't have deleted. I didn't spot that till now. That's hilarious. That pipe I just removed still needs to be there. And then I put a power pole in the way. Okay, fine. Yeah, I've already got some bots. That tank does not fix the problem. It kind of fixes the problem, but not really. I've already got some bots. I've got the bots in the personal roboports that the scenario gave me. A more common Factorio thing is to build your own robots, and maybe there are ways to do that that's faster than not in Wave Defense, but also it takes quite a lot to build all of that. Like it's not a thing you can do necessarily quickly or easily. So the thing I'm playing with now is just like leaning on the bots that the scenario gave me, and that's it. And leaving out the things I don't need, and that seems to be faster. We'll see. So again, we can see here the whole thing about inserters only ever putting things on the far side of a belt, and one belt arriving on the other and only putting its things on the side that it arrives on. And I'd actually really like full belts of stuff. So the trick I'm going to do here is have some splitters and have splitters move things to the inside of the belt if they can, and that way I'll get kind of full belts out. It won't be balanced, but it's fine. It's fine. Because all of those are going in a buffer anyway. So yeah. So we need to build a rocket. This next bit is very not normal Factorio. Usually there's a lot of other infrastructure work you have to do once you get your oil processing online, because there's the next layer of semiconductor stuff after green chips. All of the red chips need the oil. We're going to do that, but usually that's an infrastructure thing. For us it's kind of optional because we already have the bots. We don't really need anything. So I mean, the next thing we're just going to do is just start making rocket parts, because it's a scenario about making rocket parts. So there are three. The way rocket construction works is we've already got a silo. Usually you have to research and then build a silo. We don't have to do either of those. There are a number of different rocket parts. There are 3 different rocket parts that we have to manufacture and load into the rocket silo. Okay, 3 rocket part components really, because the rocket silo assembles the rocket inside the silo. Like the silo is one big assembler that only builds rockets. And we need a lot. It takes, we haven't talked about modules yet, we will in a bit, but it takes 1,000 rocket components, 1,000 of each kind of rocket components to build an entire rocket. And we're now setting up the first of these with a combination of normal and long inserters to get to both the plastic and the steel and the copper. And that's our LDS. LDS is the first of the 3 rocket components that we're now manufacturing. We're going to need more than that, but we'll deal with that in a bit. And so yeah, this is extremely Wave Defense. It is not at all a normal Factorio thing to be building rocket fuel and LDS before red chips. That's just not a thing. This is entirely Wave Defense being weird. But yeah, good times. I think that's the thing I like about Wave Defense as a scenario, is that you start with so many options that you have to figure out what you're going to do, and there are so many ways to progress a thing, and so many unusual things you can do because you're given resources you wouldn't usually have, that it's an interesting puzzle to figure out the best way to build a rocket under these circumstances. So we're going to expand. We're going to expand our rocket production. Like so, we've got another belt of copper over to the side, and that's our entire LDS and rocket fuel build. This is also not very speedrunnery either. Like it's not a normal Factorio thing to be putting down these rocket component builds at this time at this scale. Like they're a bit small, but in Wave Defense, because we start with everything unlocked, we start with all the things we need, we're going to do smaller builds for those that will take longer and hopefully get about done by the time that we've built enough of the third part, the rocket control unit, that we haven't started on yet. So this is going to be some places for the rocket components to go before we're ready to put them in the rocket. So these you can filter for particular item types, and this will mean that all the rocket control units will go on the top belt, which will then get evenly shared between those 4 boxes, and the rocket fuel will get directed to the bottom set of 4 boxes, and this is going to help us load the silo quickly, which is a thing we'll have to deal with later. Like you'll see why it's important to be able to jam all that stuff into the silo as fast as possible, but we're not dealing with it yet. We just wanted to have somewhere to put them so that the belts didn't back up. So if in any circumstance the belts are full and there's nowhere to put there's nowhere for a machine to put its output, or for the inserter to put a machine's output, it just stops. And we don't like things stopping. We like things in this being caged. And there are a lot of blinking arrows of things going wrong there, but I don't actually care. I'm just checking that the smelting lane is smelting a lot of stuff. And it is. So this is, yeah, we're now starting on a quotes mixed build, unquotes. So this is not an especially normal Factorio thing. Usually you're building everything more specifically, but it's a very common speedrun thing to have, especially at this part of the game, a giant construction that takes copper and iron and plastic and spits out all the things you need to build RCUs, which are rocket control units, the other thing that the third rocket component next to the rocket fuel and the low density structure that we've already built. And that happens because you cache a lot of iron and a lot of copper. We've cached a lot of green chips, so we've got a slightly different plan, which will kind of look similar, maybe-ish. But now, yeah, after doing advanced oil, after doing rocket fuel and low density structure, we are now beginning the arrangement of our red chips, which are the second level of semiconductor intermediates after green chips. And then at the end of this will be blue chips. We'll get to that in a bit. So yeah, there's this fairly big complicated thing, which at the moment looks kind of simple, but there's going to be more of it, and I'm going to help bots by doing the things in straight lines. But I know how many of these I want, and there's some fairly tedious, not necessarily interesting math that goes into deciding how many of those I want. And then there's quite a lot of resources that just get rolled through the middle of this thing. Yeah, this... For reasons I'm never actually going to get a full half lane of green chips from that setup, but also in that context I don't want a full half lane of green chips. We might talk about that, probably not today. But I'm lining up all of these inputs, and all of these look kind of the same. So red circuits are the second layer of semiconductor intermediate products. Like, you can't put a red circuit in the world, but a red circuit is very important in building a lot of other things. They are made from green circuits, copper cable, which also we use to make green circuits, but red circuits need more, and plastic, which we only got from the oil processing, which is why it didn't happen until now. And yeah, you can tell I'm going to be making a lot of red circuits. Turns out we need quite a few red circuits to launch a rocket. Yeah, I mean, green chips have been caching all this time as well. We need a lot of green chips. We need a lot of semiconductor stuff to build the guidance systems of the rocket that will go up. The low density structure and the fuel are kind of like, this is the only other part of the rocket that's left. And this entire thing will build, okay, a little bit of infrastructure, not much infrastructure. Mostly it's going to build the rocket. All of these resources, like, we're not unloading the green chips buffer yet. We will soon. But we're just going to tip all those resources we've hoarded and cached this whole time into, oh yeah, power poles are important. Yeah, we're going to unload all the green chips that we built in the time we were out doing stuff, and yeah, make a whole bunch of red circuits. And we haven't talked about modules yet, but we should, because they're important. Modules, even in normal games, happen immediately after red chips because they're super useful. There are 3 kinds of modules. I'm going to start by explaining the speed modules because they're the easiest. The ones I'm building at the moment are production modules, and they're kind of the most annoying to explain. Modules are things you can put in assemblers or chem plants or various other buildings that manufacture stuff that slightly adjust the properties of that manufacturer. So, for example, speed modules make it faster, and that's what they do. They make it cost more in terms of pollution, which is not a factor on this map, so that's fine, and also the amount of electricity they use. But speed modules make things faster. There are also efficiency modules, which don't make things faster, don't make things slower, but make the assemblers all use less power and generate less pollution. So yeah, you can put them in miners, you can put them in the electric furnaces. You can't put them in the fuel-based furnaces like the stone furnace and the steel furnace. But you're not going to see efficiency modules in this run because they don't make you go fast. Production modules are the most complicated. Yeah, I noticed that was wrong later too. Oh well. Production modules are the most complicated, and they are related to giving you free stuff in the sense that they improve the efficiency of assemblers with regards to the ratios of inputs they receive. So production 1 modules, which are built from red chips and green chips, which is what we're building now over there, give you 5% productivity bonus, which means that for every item you manufacture, you get 5% of a free item. And when that sort of productivity kind of charge meter thing fills up, you get a free item, which means you don't have to pay for the mining costs, the electricity costs, the production costs. So that, yeah, some of these are not connected yet because I'm not ready to connect them yet, but I do want red chips and I do want these prod mods. But yeah, the math of exactly how production modules and speed modules combine is kind of a big and separate thing, but in short, they stack together really well. So what I'm setting up now are beacons, which might be a holdover from Factorio's tower defense influences. So it's pretty common in tower defense games for you to have a thing that you build that does nothing itself but makes the surrounding buildings or towers more effective. Beacons are kind of like that, except for for the industry, for the production buildings. They don't actually do anything to any of the weapon systems. So you can put efficiency or speed modules in a beacon, and if the beacon is within range of any buildings that can receive beacon module effects, like assemblers or chem plants or etc., they all get the benefits of the modules that are in the beacon, but at a reduced rate, in addition to any of the modules that are directly in the machine. So it's time to turn the machine fully on. We're just checking the power grid, and we've reversed all of those buffers so that all of the copper and plastic we were previously hoarding, we are now injecting into the system. And yeah, trying to figure out why we're not getting beacons yet. We need the beacons. Yeah, so because of the math of how productivity modules and speed modules combine, the best and very Factorio way of doing things, if you can afford the resources to do it, and in this case, if it's speedrun efficient to do it, to spend the resources that way, is to have productivity modules. Oh yeah, driving through power poles, very Factorio. Having productivity modules in your assemblers surrounded by speed beacons, and the speed boosts more than offset the speed penalties that you get from a productivity module, and it all just works out really well. Not all recipes can receive productivity modules, only the intermediates recipes can. So the coils, the chips, red and green chips, not all of them are worth moduling immediately. This is one of the other things to worry about when it's worth doing a particular thing. Is it like there's kind of a hierarchy of which products take the most resources and take the longest to craft, and figuring out which things are best suited to giving you free stuff. And this is more complicated in base Factorio because you have labs and research to worry about as well, and all those things are good for modules. But now we're trying to figure out where to put the next power grid, because we're going to need more power. We were on the edge of needing more power before, but not yet. But when we turn on the rest of this stuff, which is the other reason why it's not online yet, we're going to need all of the power. Fortunately, we have this little solid fuel buffer that we're going to figure out how to get from point A to point B. And do we change our... Yeah, we change our mind. We're going to do a weird thing where we go all the way through one and then all the way through the other. So yeah, we need to... These are also still more steam powered plants, so we need to give it another water source. So yeah, and there's a bunch of other ratio work about the right number of boilers to the right number of steam engines to the right number of pumps to exactly how much power you get to how many you can have with a belt of stuff and all that kind of faff. So yeah, we're going to run the solid fuel line all the way through one power plant, and then all the way into the other power plant, and organize some water for that as well. The underground pipes are really handy because you can still walk through the gap. Pipes like that will otherwise block your path, which can be a bit of a pain. But you can also hit them with cars, which is a shame. You can still do that with undergrounds as well, but you know. The other quite important thing is to connect it to the rest of our power grid, because a power plant off by itself is not happy. And the problem is these are all ghosts because I've ran out of power poles, so I need to go and like weave my car through this spot, pick up some copper. I've got a lot of wood, and then craft, you know, a lot of power poles. Probably more power poles than I needed, but there's more mixed build stuff to do, so you know, that's fine. Yeah. So the other fluid thing, the last of the fluids that I need for the mixed build is a sulfuric acid, which is a component of the third layer of semiconductor products, which is the blue chips. And yeah, this is a disaster, isn't it? This is really figuring out how to get some underground pipes through a base that I didn't really properly plan out and put things in weird different places, and they're going to go around there, and no, that doesn't fit. What about through here? Yeah, there we go. That's so ugly. It gets the product to where it needs to be. It'll be fine. So the other thing about Wave Defense is I'm not doing any research, which is a big use of blue chips. I don't need the other things that acid is used for. I don't actually need that much acid, so normally you have to figure out how to get a belt of iron plates there, because that's one of the ingredients. I can just put things in a box, not worry about it. I don't actually need that much acid. I don't need the space to persist past when the rocket goes up. Like, and this is even more extreme in the power plant. I think this base at full capacity uses more power than it generates, but it relies on the fact that it cached a bunch of solid fuel to sustain the power. And I'm realizing now that I actually needed to, put all those power poles down. That they're the things that actually connect the new power grid to the existing base, which is, kind of important if I actually want to have electricity to do all my stuff. So, yeah, not all of them went down. That's fine. Just add a bit extra because having things connected is good. They won't be a problem. I won't drive into them later. It'll be fine. Yeah, and I don't even have all the steam engines. I might make a few more later. Okay, make more now. Fine. So you notice that the inserters on the belt of fuel going into the power plant didn't need electricity, and that was because they were like burner inserters. They are the category of inserters before the electric powered inserters. They will be powered by whatever fuel is going through that's also powering the power plant. Again, don't ask how the inserters that are fuel powered find the energy to pick up the fuel that will power them. That's just it's fine. So yeah, I didn't really care about where I put these things, so they just all ended up on the belt, and that's also kind of fine. So I needed some case of ridges, so I put that off to the side. Yeah, there's some other weird tricks with the sides of a belt that undergrounds will connect to and all that kind of faff, but we need to pivot away from production modules to speed modules, because speed modules are one of the things that make our rocket control units, and the other thing that makes our rocket control units are these blue chips, which I'm going to use the tier 3 assemblers for, because they're one of the most important recipes, and because you can do things like that with production modules that you can't with, the tier 2 assemblers will only allow 2 modules per assembler. The tier 3 assemblers will allow more modules, which means you could do more shenanigans with beacons and stuff like that, which is, it's doing a bunch of stuff with tier 1 modules is pretty normal in speedruns, and doing things with a lot of tier 3 assemblers and modules is normal in general Factorio as well. So yeah. And what's not entirely normal about this mixed build, normally the mixed build spits out red chips and production modules and speed modules and blue chips and sometimes LDS, depending on how the thing is set up, some of them crazy. But the thing is, we don't have to do any research, and we don't really need any more red chips than we already got. And we think we've got enough production modules, and the only thing we need are the blue chips and speed modules to make the rocket control units, and then the rocket control units. So the thing we're calling a mixed build is actually just going to now turn into just a straight RCU build. And this is a weird wave defense thing because we don't have to do any research, so we don't need all the other parts of things. So yeah, now we've got to figure out how to thread the underground pipes through the rest of our stuff. This is very standard. We're going to reverse the inserters on the green chips cache, so that now we will, instead of loading green chips into the boxes, we will unload all of the green chips that we've been hoarding into our machine. Because we're nearly ready to connect this last input. That worked out really well. Nearly ready to connect this last input and start producing a lot of stuff. And so instead of putting the red chips in a box, we're going to let them continue through to the blue chip assemblers. And yeah, there's the red chips, the production modules, like everything in that line uses a lot of green chips. So many that they don't actually fit on half lane of green chips. So what we're going to do instead is we're going to roll down about half lane of green chips, and then we're going to have this little box which is going to put more green chips on just before it gets to the blue chips. Yeah, that's a real problem. So the little red X's, it's a beeping noise, but I'm not capturing the game audio, so you don't get that. Those are all buildings being destroyed. Like, damaged is kind of fine because you can ignore it; they're still there. But destroyed means, yeah, that's more of a thing. Please do not damage the rocket silo with your car. Yeah, so these ones with the purple health bars are dead because they got killed. They've also complaining they didn't have ammo. We've fixed that as well. We're going to throw some more gun turrets down. Some of the wall might get destroyed. So after you unlock the construction robots technology, which we had from the very outset, destroyed buildings get like these blueprint ghost requests to build things rather than just getting destroyed. So if you walk within range of something that was destroyed, or if it's within the range of your robobot network, which we haven't talked about because I'm not doing it, then those things will get automatically rebuilt, which is super handy. All about the automation and making sure that your guns have ammo, and the robots, because I've got repair packs, because I crafted those before, are running around repairing all the things that got damaged. And yeah, a lot of gun turrets are out of ammo and getting killed because the otherwise non-threatening biters aren't getting killed because the turrets don't have ammo, so they could just sit there and spit at and chew on things. So yeah, this is Wave Defense. Me trying to figure out how much should I be defending? Am I defending an appropriate amount? Is my base going to survive the rest of the rocket construction? I don't actually. I'm fine with it getting chewed after I launch a rocket. But yeah, I figure there are actually a couple of bases I need to deal with. Yeah, so this game type doesn't have pollution, but its biters still, like, in normal Factorio, going out and killing bases is absolutely level 6. Yeah, okay. In normal Factorio, going out and killing bases is absolutely a thing because you get attacked when you are generating pollution clouds that are impacting on and frustrating bases, biter bases. So going out and killing them means they're no longer in your pollution cloud because they're not there, and then they don't send attacks. Yeah, day 12 damage 6 was not the place I wanted to be, but we'll deal with that. In Wave Defense, it doesn't seem to be pollution based, but there still seems to be something in some mechanics somewhere that determines how many biters you get attacked from which bases. That does depend somehow on which bases exist and also which day it is. Like it might be like there's a synthesized pollution cloud based on which day it is or something like that. But anyway, pushing these bases back does mean that it will be an easier time to defend fewer biters that are attacking us, in addition to having better damage upgrades that will help us take on the larger biters. Yeah, and we'll still just walk through these in combat shotgun, and yeah, good times. Yeah, is this? So in terms of in terms of normal Factorio sort of combat decisions, the late game stuff is still like artillery, nuclear weapons, giant laser spiders, all that kind of stuff. Landmines are also a good way of doing things, except we didn't set up any of the components to make landmines because we didn't need to. Usually, like, there's a speedrun thing of driving around in a car, throwing landmines out your window that works fantastically well. I haven't built components to make landmines. I just like skipped all of that because I didn't think I needed it. And this seems to be working well enough. The other thing about landmines in Wave Defense is you've got quite a big perimeter. Are you going to build enough landmines to defend that entire perimeter? Are you going to have landmines as well as gun turrets? Are you going to lean on landmines for some of the stuff but use gun turrets for the rest? A lot of open questions. So at the moment, yeah, I'm just not bothering with any of that. I figured the fewer different things I had to build, the faster I would go, and it seems to be working. And also those pushes don't happen all that much slower than the landmine based pushes previously. Like, especially in larger bases, throwing landmines out of a car, you end up doing like a couple of passes and looping around past stuff, and like this way you can just walk through, put down a bunch of gun turrets. It's fine. So, yeah, we now need to downgrade those to assembler 2s because we need the assembler 3s to finish off the rest of this build, and this is looking kind of healthy. Like, it's got a lot of resources on it. It's got all the green chips and the red chips. It doesn't. Yeah, I need to visit again and finish off this build, but again, this is a thing that I can help the bots with. So yeah, it's pretty normal in Factorio to have this setup of lots of assemblers in a row. We're going to put beacons in between them. We're going to magnify all the effects. Speedruns don't generally tend to do this for RCUs. Most of the way things work, you just generally have like a lot more assemblers making RCUs rather than actually bothering to prod mod any of them. But, you know, see if this works. So we're already making a couple of RCUs. We're going to need a lot more. Yeah, we kind of talked about productivity modules. There are tiers of productivity modules, and each of them make your assemblers or buildings slower, but also give you more free stuff. And the way it works out, that you definitely want for the rocket silo the highest tier of productivity modules. That one actually didn't want to be there, wanted to be there. Yeah, you definitely want the highest tier of productivity modules, so we still have to build those. I still need to put more green chips in that cage as well. Because yeah, there's this build, this kind of mixed build thing is kind of delicately balanced. If I have, yeah, use a different size power pole that reaches further. If I make too many modules, then not enough red chips make it all the way to the blue chips, and then I have a lot of speed modules and no blue chips, and then I'm unhappy because my rocket doesn't go anywhere. Oh yeah, this is a quick hack as well, probably won't talk about this. The belt of RCUs I just tacked on the end of the belt of LDS, and because of all of those are already on their way to the silo, and I'm not making any of those particularly quickly, and I've already set all the filters up, they'll just end up in the right boxes later. So yeah, I still have the oil problem. Mostly we're just getting the rest of the power plant online and connecting it up. Don't know if I actually checked the power plant here. We still haven't powered the silo, we don't need to yet, we're not doing anything with it. So yeah, between the production modules and the 4 boxes and all that kind of stuff, the magic number for how many rocket components need to be in each box is 180. The closer I get to 180, the happier I am. If I hit 180, I don't need any more, and I'll probably just like turn the build off and focus on other things. So yeah, this build is now quite short of green chips because I actually need to top them up, but haven't yet. And so yeah, we've got a row of assemblers, a row of beacons. This is pretty normal. We still haven't actually seen the reason why I'm doing this yet. And yeah, maybe we won't talk about it here. Each tier of module is made from a previous tier of module of the same kind. So productivity module 2s, time to turn on the entire machine. Productivity module 2s require a bunch of productivity module 1s and some other stuff. Productivity module 3s, which we're going to build 4 of to put in the silo, and yeah, turn on the power plant as well, put all that solid fuel into the power plant. Productivity module 3s require a bunch of productivity module 2s. So what I'm actually going to do, I don't know if I do this now or later, but those productivity module 2s, I'm going to start building them now. Yep, they take a bunch of productivity modules. I don't think I have quite enough. There's some more over here. I'm going to I'm going to upgrade some of the RCU assemblers to use the Prod 2 modules instead of the Prod 1 modules. They take blue circuits as well. They're kind of expensive. I've got enough red circuits though, that's nice. Yeah, balancing all the stuff is... I'm almost at a point where the machine is taking over, doing all its processing and stuff, and so this is the point where I realize I actually need to move the cache over. That's kind of how that entire mixed build thing is set up. It will use more than a whole belt of green chips, and this is where I'm realizing, yeah, I need to put a box there, but I had a box in the car. I moved all my stuff to a car. Yeah, the cars have an inventory. We barely use it. I think this is the only time I use the fact that the car has an inventory. And now they've got all of the green chips they could want because we're refilling the green chips. These top ones though, okay, they're kind of short of red circuits because I only just put them there. But again, we've got a bunch of ghosts because I didn't actually have all the beacons on me. Those ones are still making productivity modules. That's fine. Doing a copy and paste it like that will set the recipes. And yeah, some of the RCUs are kind of going on the belt, giving me all my stuff back. There were still kind of flashing warnings and stuff. This is day 13, so things aren't even getting too hairy just yet. We'll still have a while to go. But yeah, should get the rest of the beacons, should get the RCUs up to full speed, should get the other lanes doing stuff. We're now well on our way to building a rocket. So yeah, this is where we realized we were going to be short of oil. The plastic is low, partly because we're only re-ingesting plastic from one side, partly because we ran out of the buffer of plastic. Same with the copper. So we'll try and just manually rebalance this by putting some of these things on the other side. This is again the thing about inserters only putting things on the far side of a belt. Get the beacons, get some more beacons, check the power grid. Power grid is fine. Yeah. So I'm starting to get some overflow of bots repairing the wall. Good on your bots, I guess. Starting to get some of those parts built up. The RCU build we do, the rocket control unit build, is much faster than either the LDS or the rocket fuel builds, and the idea is we want to kind of pump through these as quickly as we can to catch up with the other things we set up a while ago that are taking longer. And yeah, how are we doing? I think we still need to make productivity 2 modules. What are the numbers like? The numbers are pretty good. They're still getting there. It's quite a long belt though. machine is working. I realize that I actually need more blue chips, and this is a trick with side belt stuff that we'll probably ignore. But I need 1 stack of blue chips, so please fill up that chest. You can say chests. I think I did this a couple of times at the mall as well. The red area will not get filled with stuff, but you can manually put stuff in there, and it's a way of controlling how much stuff you want to build, because you often don't want to build a full chest of stuff. But yeah, I think I got nervous about exactly how much combat upgrade stuff I'd spent, and decided I needed to push a few more bases and get a few more upgrades. The corners are typically particularly vulnerable, just because of geometry reasons. So yeah, push some things out of the corners. There's a trick with the gun turrets where if you're manually picking up a gun turret, you've kind of seen this with a car as well, it takes like a second or so, some amount of time. But you get all the ammo, you get everything in its inventory or whatever's inside the turret that just arrives. Whereas if you... There's a big bite. Okay, now it's dead. If you send a bot to pick something up, a number of bots will have to individually collect each item that's inside the thing, which in a gun turret with 100 ammo means a bunch of bot trips before it can pick up the turret. Whereas the trick there is you can take all the ammo out of a row of turrets really, really quickly, and then all the turrets are empty, and the bots can instantly pick them up again. So this is... I mean, there aren't really all that many useful points of doing that in normal Factorio, because by the time you have bots normally, there are better combat options. It's only because this weird setup of we have bots, and we also kind of haven't bothered setting up a lot of other stuff, and we don't have the rocket launcher or the flamethrower or the landmines or any of that kind of stuff, and we're just having ways of using the gun turrets extremely well. And yeah, so we're putting the more expensive upgraded productivity modules in places where they're surrounded by the most beacons, so they get the most benefit from the most extra speed modules. And yeah, we're now realizing that we're drastically short of red chips, and in fact drastically short of plastic in a number of places. Like those 4 lanes, we would expect to hopefully see a bunch of plastic moving across them. We don't. I mean, that RCU flow is pretty good, so we're kind of happy with that, except sometimes it's just easier to walk to the other side and put the car back down again. Yeah, so only 2 and now 3 and maybe the 1. Okay, so 4 of the refineries have their little flare stacks going, indicating they're doing stuff. So we're going to throw in some productivity modules, which will get us more free stuff and also slow down the buildings so that other buildings will also be able to do... Yeah, we'll get free stuff. And check on the numbers. It's pretty good. The fuel buffer is now exhausted, which is fun. And there's some things in the wrong places, but whatever. Put them directly into the silo. It won't do anything yet. It's not powered. Yeah, they're pretty good. Although that plastic is unhappy. Definitely need more resources being funneled into that plastic. And the solution we have for this is pump jacks are also a thing that we can speed module. So we do. So all those are now going 40% faster, and we can also throw in some beacons so that the other 2 are now going 80% faster, probably. I think that's what the numbers end up. Yeah. Probably the other variation it should have had is used a pump to pump all the oil out of that tank and into the petrochem build, but sure, things I can remember for next time. So we've done something about securing our oil flow. We've now got, it looks like 6 of the refineries running again, and the plastic is not great yet, but hopefully it gets better. Yeah, looking at a thing going, why isn't this working? I needed more of this is extremely Factorio. It's one of the most Factorio things. Losing your car is also a very Factorio thing, which is why we keep picking it up, because then you're not distracted by something, wandering to a different part of your base and trying to figure out where you left your car. Which is also why we don't use it as an inventory much, because you lose to pick it up with as much. You can't pick it up with as much effectiveness. You end up dropping a bunch of things if you can't carry everything that's in the car. So, inventory management, fun things. So yeah, that upgrade planner I set up before is set to downgrade productivity 2 modules to productivity 1 modules, and so I'm using it there to count how many productivity 2 modules there are, because when I have an amount of RCUs that I'm happy with, and at the moment I've got all the LDS that I need, so I'm gonna redirect all of that plastic from the low density structure build into some of these red circuits. Very manual things, very Factorio. Pretty speedrun, pretty normal Factorio. It's pretty representative. Yeah, recover all of these things. And yeah, when I think I've got all the RCUs that I need, or at least I'm approaching a critical number, because I still have to do the manufacturing process that upgrades a bunch of production 2 modules into a bunch of productivity 3 modules, and I need to time it well enough so that the rocket silo gets the productivity 3 modules that it wants with enough time to manufacture the rocket and the plan is, hopefully this is I line this up so well that it finishes completing the rocket when the last RCUs arrive that it would use to build those rocket parts, but also the subsequent rocket control unit parts from the other big mixed build thing will happen slower, because I'll have taken some of their productivity modules out, so I won't be getting the free stuff. But anyway, more modules in the Petrochem. Modules in the Petrochem, because something is slow, is very Factorio. Worrying about where your sources are. So we've moduled the plastic quite heavily. We've moduled the cracking. The plastic coming out now is pretty good. This probably should have occurred to me to do this with the pumpjacks earlier. And I figured, because I've cut the rocket fuel, which also ingested the light oil. I mean, it didn't use much light oil, but enough. I'm going to throw down another cracking plant that will crack the light oil into more of the gas that the plastic needs. Actually, in retrospect now, because I failed with that thing where the tank went before, this one is now going to start cracking all the light oil that's been building up. But yeah, emergency cracking, very Factorio. Pipe not being long enough, because it's not actually connecting, and I'm trying to figure out why, and it's because the underground pipe doesn't quite connect, so put another one in there. Yeah, it's fine. Now it's doing stuff, and I've got more plastic, which I don't want to deal with myself, so the buffer can sort it out. Yeah. How are we doing with the things? Not many RCUs coming down the track, which I don't like. Nobody happier with more of them. Still a couple to upgrade some of their modules. I think those are the blue chips I need to make the last, except also the productivity module ones are badly balanced. I sort that out. Sure. Yeah, this is kind of the last scramble to get the rest of the rocket parts in place. But those are not in the place they need to be. They'll affect slightly more. So similar to the power poles, when you mouse over a beacon, you can see kind of the area it affects. Yeah, it's wave defense. We're defending. Really, we are. Yeah, so productivity mods are doing thing. We're really just going through the last stages of. So that one didn't have any plastic, so it's not making any red chips, so it's not getting anything done. So we'll bring the green chips that we need for everything to be working down to the other side. In theory, that whole thing will consume a little bit less than, just a hair less than a full belt of plastic. But we're not supplying it with a full belt of plastic, so it's kind of unhappy. And I figure at this point this is the time to pull the trigger on, I think it's close to being trigger on this downgrade and turning them on to production 3s and starting the next step. Yeah, when it's short anything, because the blue chips are like later in the process than the speed modules, I've got all the speed modules I want, but not enough blue chips, and so all these things aren't quite being production modules yet. But yeah. So we're converting the production 2 module build to production 3s. They also need more blue circuits, which I'm kind of stuck for, and also 5 each of. And yeah, I realize I've got way too many of these things, and my solution to this is, because the rest of the stuff is starving for them, I will be quite careful about exactly how many of these things I need, and any of the red chips that I don't need to make exactly the number of production 3 modules I want are going to get recycled back into the build that will make me more blue circuits to make more rocket control units, which are the things that I need most of. They take 5 of each of those things, and then I need all the Pro 2s, which, so the upgrade planner is a cool thing. It's called the upgrade planner. I just used it there to downgrade, but it will also do that, and that's, a nice trick. There are a couple of times in normal Factorio where you want to downgrade some things, but mostly it's a good way of when I have personal robots, telling them to go and get all the other modules. It doesn't work if I don't have the production 1 modules in my inventory though. So yeah, so we are on the last legs of this at the moment. I want those productivity 3 modules faster, so we will beacon them. Beaconing things can be slightly more effective than putting the speed modules directly in the assemblers, even though like the effect spreads less, but you're spreading it over more buildings. So yeah. So I'm uprooting some of these beacons because I want to put them around the rocket silo, so the rocket silo does its stuff fast. And this is the other reason for leaving the production 3 modules for as long as possible, and building up a giant cache of RCUs, leveraging the production 2 modules, and then doing a lip dance. And if the hope is I can get that timing right and everything goes well. Are these done yet? These are done. So I really left those 2 beacons there. Wow, that's something I'm going to have to do better next time. Driving into pipes, very normal. So yeah, the rocket silo gets the 4 productivity modules. A thing we haven't talked about is inserter capacity upgrades. Usually those are fast inserters, and in a lot of circumstances even fast inserters won't keep up. But because because Wave Defense has given us a bunch of upgrades, our inserters by default carry more than they otherwise would, and so it's fine. And so yeah, rocket silo is building a rocket, give it more beacons, give the beacons power. The rocket silo is now fast, nice and fast. It's got the productivity bonus, and yeah, cars getting stuck on belts are also great. The power grid is happy because we underloaded the buffer, because we put more on it, not sure, but it's fine. So this is kind of the last stage of, and this is also a bit of guesswork, creating the beacons, realizing that belt was messed up the whole time, trying to spread out the production, but then also realizing that let's fix it, why not? Sure, none of this will actually make any difference because it's so close to the end. None of these things will get manufactured. But yeah, run down the belt, pick up all the RCUs that are around, and so the idea is one of those RCUs is the last one that the rocket silo needs to produce the rocket that will launch, and then we win. And if we just let it arrive down the belt normally, then it'd be, wherever it is and whatever time it takes. If we run down the belt, picking them all up, then that's faster. And we actually timed that pretty well. There's some stuff getting attacked. It's fine. This is what the rocket silo looks like when it's preparing. And we successfully built a rocket. And it was pretty fast. And this is what the rocket looks like when it's launching. And we've got some stuff left over. Yeah. That's how long we took. But that time doesn't include, like, the time goes to when the victory message arrives, which is pretty soon. And also includes the map previewing we did. But yeah, we got a rocket done, and the base is not dying yet, and it's all pretty stable. And yeah, that went pretty well. Pretty happy with that. Maybe you are too. We'll do more of these.